Welcome back to the Wisdom Rising podcast. For this week's topic, we have connecting with the power of the divine feminine for spiritual awakening. Today, I'm joined with Chantel Ochoa, and I wanted to give you a little bit of a sneak peek of what we're talking about today because it's a good one. I just got back from Costa Rica for a Tantric Ayahuasca experience, and I brought so much wisdom back regarding how to use the Yoni as your new GPS system, utilizing the microcosmic orbit in a feminine way, how to really cultivate that divine feminine energy within and utilize its power in its numerous faces of numerous goddesses that are available to support us, including, and probably the most important, Mother Gaia, Pachamama. So be sure to tune in. I hope you enjoy this episode and know that we also get into how to support our Reiki students and mentorship and why these aspects are important. And next Wednesday on November 13th, we have our monthly Q&A with the focus of supporting our Reiki orphans out there. So if you identify as a Reiki orphan or just don't have a great relationship with your Reiki teacher, or even if you do and you still have a lot of questions, this is the place to come. Be sure to check out those show notes to go ahead and register for that. And while you're there, also take a look at our website at moonrisinginstitute.com, as well as our Facebook group, our Instagram, our YouTube channel. We're in all of the places and spaces, and we want you to be there as well. So I hope you enjoy this episode. And if you have any questions, come on over to our Facebook group, which is Moon Rising Mystics, and we'll see you there. So today on Whispers of Wisdom, we're going to be discussing connecting with the power of the divine feminine for spiritual awakening. And I want to just start that conversation right off with knowing that each and every one of us, whether you're identify as male or female, we have a divine feminine presence within. We have both a sacred masculine and a divine feminine. And I find, like, personally, especially right now in my world, my work is to understand both and find the balance of both, that there's not one that's more important than the other, that there's these aspects within ourselves and they can be mature and stand in their truth and their confidence, or they can be immature and lack some of the qualities that these archetypes bring forward. And so today's conversation is a reflection of my time that I just had in Costa Rica for a tantric ayahuasca retreat, as well as really kind of bringing in some of these elements of how do we discover the divine feminine in our own current everyday reality? How do we embrace her? How do we acknowledge her? How do we emphasize that her beauty in our life and embrace it? So thank you all for joining with us. I'm on the call this morning with Chantel Ochoa. I'm so excited that we are
Hello,
here
everyone.
together. Yeah. So
Yeah, I'm excited for this conversation. One, I want to hear your experience. And two, I'm really excited that we are embracing feminine energy and we're stepping more into the power of the feminine. Like, just socially, people in general are really starting to embrace that energy, and I love it.
well, I feel like it's just starting to really come forward. Like, we definitely saw emergence and focus in the early 2000s up until today. And now we're seeing more of, like, there are men's retreats on developing that honest and integrity, the sacred masculine, and what's the difference between the masculine and toxic masculinity and the sacred masculine. Like, there's those conversations happening, and I'm so happy for it. Like, that is fantastic. And yet we have so many who have not discovered the divine feminine. And part of me is like, well, she came here first. She came first because she's of the earth. She is Mother Gaia. She is the Pachamama. She is that connection to our source of everything. Like, we all were birthed from the waters, right? We all came from the womb. And so we're blessed in that energy. And so how do we come to a space of recognizing the mother the divine feminine, this beautiful energy that's nourishing and supportive and transmuting any of our heaviness. Like, I feel like there's that energy in the earth herself, and then there's the energy in which we get to claim for our own. So like when we are connected into her energy, what does that mean for us? So part of this retreat, like, everyone has different reasons for going to an ayahuasca retreat. And for me, when I looked at it, I'm like, this is a women's tantric retreat, and ayahuasca is secondary to me. It wasn't the primary motivation. And I was like the only one there who was a newbie to ayahuasca. Like, I have done other plant medicine, but I never had really gotten the call from Mama Aya to partake. And it really was like, I'm on the airplane on my way to Costa Rica going, I still haven't gotten the call yet, and I'm on my way to do this, and got the call on the way down. And it was very much in that beautiful feminine energy. Like, I needed that. Like, I needed to feel that feminine energy presence, because my intention for going to this retreat was to understand and embody the divine feminine, period. Simple as that. And other people, they have their own reasons for going, and a lot of it's to work through their own heavy emotion. And for myself, it was like, I really wanted to come in with a clear intention of asking something at a, like, I don't know how else to say it, but like at a really high level, because I knew if I could understand the divine feminine, my relationships would make sense. My past history would make sense. My sexual trauma would make sense if I knew the divine feminine. All the other things, all the other details of my life, I would have answers for if I could ask that higher level question of, how do I understand and embrace the divine feminine? So that was overall my intention in coming into this space. And I so enjoyed all of the tantric practices. Like, these are very women focused practices to connect our womb space to the earth, and to allow that Kundalini rising energy move within us in a powerful way. And I would say those practices had more of a profound impact on what I'm coming home to than the ayahuasca. Like, there was some beautiful, amazing, incredible moments in the ayahuasca experience. And it I was having such full-bodied energetic releases and understandings from the physicality of the tantric exercises, that they almost felt more awakening.
And then you come home, and that's the integration process. And what you were saying, it's like it doesn't end when the retreat is done. It's now you're integrating, because you're only a week out, right? So
Yeah.
how is that feeling right now for you?
It's been interesting. Like, I'm a real big believer in the 21 days of, whether you're getting a Reiki attunement, or you had a big profound moment, or you're initiating a new, life goal, or whatever it is. Like, those 21 days are such an important piece of the integration process. And I'm definitely still in it. Like, I came home and I was like, I really don't want to focus on anything but just finding my home routine and practice, and setting up myself for success. And overall, it's been really good in the fact that I was able to set up my new practices, one of which is Yoni Yoga. And I'm absolutely, like, I don't like yoga. I went to a yoga retreat in Costa Rica with Chantel like 9 months ago. And I was like, I don't even like yoga. Why are we doing a yoga retreat? Like, I don't care for much of yogic practices, particularly because my shoulders and neck have issues. And so I end up always hurting myself, and I'm just in pain. And it just is not a practice that supports me. So here I am at this tantric retreat, women's retreat. And someone overheard me saying that, oh, I just don't like yoga. And the facilitator was like, oh, we've got a new yoga practice that you've never tried before, and you're going to love it. Right. And I'm just like, okay, as long as I don't have to do downward dog. because that's the one that always triggers me. And what is in every single yoga class is like downward dog, downward dog. I'm like, I hate downward dog. I can't, my shoulders cannot handle this. And, and so I think it's the second day we do our Yoni yoga practice. And even before that, the day before, the day prior was this exploration of what yoni eggs were. And I'm like, oh, I have mine. I brought mine with me. Like I had the tools. It hadn't been practiced with because I've never gotten proper instruction. So a yoni egg, just for those of you who don't know, is a crystal shaped egg and smaller than a normal egg. It's like a quail size egg, or maybe a little bigger than a quail size egg, just to give you reference, right? And you place it into your yoni, up into your vaginal canal, and ultimately, like from a physiological standpoint, the yoni egg helps you identify what muscle groups you're focusing on with the yoni egg in. But because it's also crystal, you can place intentions there. You can do energy clearing with a yoni egg for all of any heaviness that's been residing in your womb space. So whether this is your mother wound, whether this is sexual trauma, whatever it is, you have this yoni egg that literally is helping clear out all of that energy. And the yoni yoga practice, utilizing the yoni egg, is really to connect your womb space with the mother of the earth. So here we're connecting down into this source Mother Earth energy.
That's wonderful.
It's
What a
super
great way to
cool.
be able to set the intention and to focus on clearing old energy and trauma in seems to me to be like a very gentle, subtle kind of way of doing it, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so much energy that does get stored up there. And especially if you've had multiple sex partners and haven't
Mhm.
cleared out that sexual energy, whether it's good, like if it's good sex, it's not like a sexual trauma, but the more partners we have, it stores up all of that energy
Energy.
from their past partners and so forth. And so that's a great practice to be able to clear
Yeah.
everything out.
Yes. Right.
To
And
like
so,
re-virginize yourself.
well, and it's like recognizing that women are receivers, we're receptive,
Yeah,
right? And so, as being a receiver, being receptive, what are we pulling into our womb space? So, we think about being empathetic. Well, our womb is empathetic, it really wants to bring in energy from outside of ourselves and into that womb space, especially in our partnerships, especially in our sexual relations, especially when we're making those types of connections. And when we have a clear, energetically clear womb space, we can use this as a manifestation center rather than I have to transmute my partner's energy, right?
exactly. Yeah.
And
Because it is one of the like through orgasm is one of the greatest ways of manifesting because it's
absolutely
the like most heightened frequency of energy that we can create
cultivate.
physically. Yeah.
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 Right. And so here you're having this yoni yoga practice, and part of it is understanding that like we're using really deep breath work. So there was some practices that were very holotropic breathing. And if you've ever experienced holotropic breath work, this is very psychedelic like experiences. It's tapping into your natural DMT that is stored in your lung space. And you could have these full body experiences because of the breath work. So you're combining this intense breath work with the yoni yoga while we're clearing out our womb space. And so much of it is recognizing the spine and the spine itself being how I, I feel like so much of the practices that I have learned in the past have come from a very masculine, straight back, straight spine, don't let anything move, right? And that's beautiful for a masculine practice, right? And we're women, like,
We're
and
fluid.
we're fluid. We're supposed to be moving. And so much of the practice of the basics of yoni yoga, which you don't have to have an egg to do this, which I love. Like, do it without the egg. I'm teaching my almost 12-year-old daughter these practices. I'm like, this is the perfect time to train her, right? To connect down into the earth using your womb space. She won't ever need a man. Like if she learns these practices, she won't need a partner. She can want that, she can desire it, but she won't have a need for it. Right. And so I'm like, I'm doing this for myself. I'm doing this for my daughter. I'm doing this for women. And part of that Yoni yoga practice is envisioning that you have an energetic strand coming from your womb space, from your yoni, down into the earth and spiraling down, like envisioning a ribbon or a golden cord or whatever it may be, that's spiraling all the way down into the earth until you feel like it's been received by Pachamama, by Mother Gaia. And in that way, once she's received the end of that cord, that end of the ribbon, whatever it looks like, feels like for you, you are sending all of your releases down to her. You're releasing down that golden cord. And while you're releasing, you're literally spiraling your hips. You're moving your waist. You're energetically spiraling around that yoni egg, around that womb space, as if you're drilling down into the earth. And so you're inviting movement. It can be very small, subtle circles, or it can be big circles. And so when we move this way, we're energetically sending it down and down and down and down into the earth. And you're releasing, you're offering all of the heaviness that you have been harboring in that space down into the earth, where Mother Gaia is happy to receive it and transmute it. She's happy to transform it into some positive energy. And so you release, 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 and then you spiral the opposite direction. And it's as if you're envisioning the gifts of Mother Gaia coming up on that golden strand all the way up into your womb space, right? And so you're spiraling up the positive energy, up the energy. And while you do so, you're breathing on the inhale, you're breathing in and squeezing that yoni egg. You're squeezing your yoni space. You're starting at the vaginal opening and then your midsection and then at the very top of the uterus. Like you're able to kind of like suck it up. You're like, I am drinking it up like it's a straw. And you're like, yes to all of the blessings. Yes to this energy. Yes, yes, yes. Right. And so you're bringing that energy into the womb space. And then your womb is full of this positive energy, right? You can feel that sexual energy, that power that's residing there within you. And so when that is happening, you have choice in this. One, you can be like, oh yeah, that's all that's needed, right? Like I can just fill up my womb space. Or there's other practices that can go beyond it. And this is where it can get really interesting. Like I think one of my greatest lessons I got from a spiritual teacher that showed up to me in the ayahuasca journey was don't orgasm. Take all of that energy. You're on the edge of that orgasms and don't do it. Don't do it. And I'm like, okay, well, what do I do with all this energy, this cultivated energy, this sexual energy? And it's very much you take that energy and you kind of circulate that energy in your womb. And then you energetically with your hands from your womb into your heart, you draw it up. You draw it up into your heart space. You take all of that energy, you direct it into your heart and you hold your breaths and know that this is the energy that can, utilizing that physiological pump of your heart, we can now circulate it through our entire body. So now it's not sexual tension. It's now moved into the heart space where it can move throughout your entirety of your system and overflow in abundance up and out your crown chakra to enhance your auric field.
What a powerful experience.
It's super cool. And so this is what I'm bringing home with me. This is where in my integration process and beyond, even if I just did that 15-minute exercise every single day, how much clearer am I going to be in my energy field? How much clearer am I going to be in my heart space and in my womb space? How easier is it going to be able to make decisions after doing this practice, right? Because the womb space, when it's clear, one of the trainings, the teachings that I learned is that really our uterus, our womb space this yoni space is our GPS system as women. And when that GPS system has been doing the healing work, that it's clear and that's received the blessing, received this connection to Pachamama, to Mother Gaia, it knows the next right decision. It's not our brain. it's
Mhm.
it's our womb. And it can know which partner is a match. It can know what decision is the right next step. And so part of it is like, how can we keep this clear because it is so receptive, because it wants to absorb energy of those around us? We can keep it clear with intention of like, it's connected to Gaia. This is my clear womb space. And knowing that there's many faces of the divine feminine. It doesn't have to be the soft nurturing all the time. Sometimes it's warrior queen energy, right? And so there's many faces of the divine feminine, and your womb space knows which best face you need to put on for the situation at hand.
I think that's a great point for a lot of women to understand is it does have the divine feminine does have many faces, because I think on the outside a lot of women become intimidated by the energy of the divine feminine, thinking you have to have this goddess energy or be beautiful on the outside, you have to be all put together and the nurturer and the lover and all these things, but it really is you cultivating your divine feminine within you. And how does that show up so that you show up in your full power of your own divine feminine versus comparing yourself to others, magazines, TV, all that. It just has done such a disservice for women to think like I can never tap into my own feminine energy because I'll never compare to that. And it is not even about that.
Right.
Like that is how they show up. But for us, it's so empowering to know that we can just tap into our divine feminine. And with that, we can glow and be that woman and show up in our full power and utilize the energy of our womb space to cultivate more energy and to manifest and to grow and to get out of the masculine because we're embracing that version of ourselves.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, feminine has just been, embraced as soft, as submissive,
Mm-hmm.
as weak, as whatever it is. And I think Kali is a goddess. She she went on a rampage and killed a bunch of people, and Shiva had to like lay down his life to like contain her energy. Like there's such a strong, powerful vision. Like one of the goddesses that came to me before I arrived at the retreat was Heket. And I was like, I was trying to remember who she was, like her name, the vision of her came forward, but I couldn't remember what her story was. And so while I was there, I'm looking up Heket and I'm like, oh my goodness, here is this very, I don't want to say dark, but she has that dark shadow energy of she's got her dogs, she's got these torches, she's got these snakes, she's got this fire, and she's just a badass, like she's just ready to take on the world. And she is the goddess of sorcery and magic,
Yeah.
right? And so it's like, here is this goddess who really has the apothecary. It has this energy of don't mess with me energy. And she is the one who showed up before I even entered into the retreat setting, right?
I've worked with Sekhmet and it's the same thing. And she's this warrior goddess and she's got her dark shadow side because she, went and destroyed many people. But then once she became in balance with herself, she became the healer. So
Right.
it's like on one side, she's like this killer who's going out and destroying because of where humanity was at the time. But then in her lighter side, yeah, she's the healer because she was able to transform and to really tune into that feminine energy of herself. And it is so important for us to be able to connect with the warrior within us on the divine feminine side of us. Because I think a lot of times when we tune into the warrior within, we always assume it's the masculine warrior, but it's not always the masculine warrior. A lot of times it is the feminine warrior, and we need to stand up in that power too, because that's when we embrace that, that's what pulls us forward. That's what lets us stand on our own foundation and be strong and like as women, like hear me roar kind of thing. And it's, it's not the masculine that's doing that. It's really the feminine rising up.
Yes. Yeah. And so we have this remembrance that the earth was once wild. Women were once wild. And there's been such a, how do we cultivate her? How do we shape her? How do we make her into submissive from the patriarchy? Right? Like there's very much like the feminine earth that was once wild now is dominated by farm crops. That's, it's had her land has suffered at the hands of patriarchy. And part of my understanding from all of this was very much that being wild is part of who we are as a woman, having that wildness, having that um, freedom to fully express. And yes, there's a space for the male energy, that the masculine sacred energy to come in to give us boundaries, but not to overtly dominate,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this is why the earth suffers, because there's been this domination of her land, and where are the wild spaces left? And so that's where I just get curious. And so part of the learnings is the balance between the two. Where are women strong and can surrender? Where can they be light and dark? Where can, like all of it is, that's women. Like it's not, we embrace our shadow as much as we embrace our light. And that's what being a woman is to me at this point in my journey of understanding the divine feminine, is that there's not a right or wrong. It's a combination of both. And so often we hear like we need to shed ourselves of the shadow, shed ourselves of the darkness. And as women, maybe we're supposed to hold that power. Maybe there's something in that when we can transmute the shadow, understand the shadow, love the shadow as part of who we are. No longer are we going to lie down.
I totally agree with that. There is a lot of power in accepting our shadow self and working with her versus trying to hide that energy, hide that side of ourselves. Because a lot of times in society, it's like telling women you need to calm down. And I'm not like a big feminist or anything like that. So it's not like that. It's like more for me, it is we need to rise up in our own personal power so that we can speak our truth, so we can be our authentic self. And when we're doing that, it really is empowering ourselves. It's empowering our daughters. It's empowering our granddaughters, even our sons, or, to be able to stand in their own feminine energy of saying it's okay to connect to your wife. It's okay to connect to your daughters. And I think even with men, that the feminine in them has been suppressed to the point of men don't cry. You can't, you can't do this, you can't do that. You can't connect with women on a very loving, compassionate level because you're supposed to be strong. And I'm more like, I get all that. I love having a very masculine man. At the same time, when he comes home, I want him to be able to embrace me in a way that's soft so that him and I can communicate without it being abrasive or being over the top, over powerful. And there's that where that balance is been distorted in society. I feel is it's so dominant in masculine energy that we're all just running through life, just go, 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 and do, and we're going to overtalk and overshadow. And in the end, it's like we have missed such a beautiful aspect of who we are. And it is time to embrace her and to embrace that energy within us so we can have these conversations that are important to have within families, to be able to be embracing of our children, to get on the floor with them, all these things that you can't do when you're just in the one version of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's it. Like women are fluid.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think like this thought came into my mind just now of like, women have multiple personalities. Like that's what, men really want to fight against, that we have so many different emotions and personalities. I'm like, yeah, we do. Like, and that's fine. I'm like, and it's okay. It's okay to be fluid and in motion and in movement. And where have we shoved down our authentic selves trying to maintain one identity, one role of who we are, when we're multifaceted individuals? Mm-hmm. And when we are connected to the divine feminine, she has asked, like, and I think that was one of the beautiful things about my trip. I connected with Heket, who's very like strong, defiant energy. She's just going to do what she wants to do. I connected with Mama Aya, and in one facet of her, it was very much a blessing. Like she was pouring water over my head and letting all of my fear wash away, and was very loving and embrace. And that was not on the medicine before any of the ceremonies started. And then I got to see her under the medicine, where it was very much, much stronger, much like, I'm going to show you. And there was a bit of needing to have this, that where am I available to submit to her energy, and where am I going to stand in my truth and not allow any spiritual entity make decisions for myself. Like I'm sovereign even in that space. Right.
Oh, good for you.
Right. And then there's the space of where I got to meet the goddess of the mother goddess, the mother of all goddesses. Like I went so far out. Like I met Isis, and then I met like the mother of Isis, the mother of all of the goddesses. And she was so familiar to me, even though I had never seen her. She felt so familiar and so loving, but she was also had a very stark energy and had a mission and purpose, and really reminding me of who I am and where I came from and why I'm here on earth. And like, don't forget that this is your mission and purpose. And I'm like, okay, here we go. I've got that. And then there was very much that embodiment of the divine feminine. And the way it was represented to me was in a birthing mother. And there is not more of a sacred space for women to really be able to find the combination of both that worlds, where you have to be strong and you have to be soft. You have to release and you have to fight through it. Like there's this duality in birthing. And it was such a powerful reminder of like, oh yeah, I'm such a badass at this. Like I have babies very easily, very quickly. And it's because I can breathe the energy through and surrender and be strong. And that duality was very, very informing, because I went in like, I don't know how to do both. I don't know how to, I'm one or the other. And either people are going to think I'm abrasive and harsh, or they're going to think that I'm a pushover and soft. Like, I don't know how to embrace both. And this was the embodiment that I received. And in doing so, I was able to meet Kuan Yin, or Kanan, if you're in the Japanese lineage, right? With her 1,000 arms, scooping up the baby, holding and nurturing it and feeding it. And just being able to see all of these different goddesses show up over my week in Costa Rica was just really profound. And ultimately recognizing that I am the priestess, I am the temple keeper, I am the goddess, I am the embodiment of the divine feminine if I will remember her. And so that was really the ultimate takeaway, is like, it's not something that I have to try to achieve. It's something that I'm already innately am. And so it's remembrance. It's a waking up to a remembering, this is who I am. And if all women could have that remembrance, of this is who I am. This is my divine nature, to be in the balance of both, to be in the surrender and into the strength of what does it really mean to be feminine for you? Like an incredible experience. Ultimately, like seeing all of the different ways the feminine face showed up that week, and in the other women participants and in the facilitators, and remembering I've done this before. I've done this work before. I remember this. I know who I am. I am that I am. I am that I am.
Mhm. It's that spiritual amnesia that we have, so we don't remember who we have been. And so we only grapple or connect with who we are here. But when you do have that soul remembering of who you have been, what you've done, and you can see pieces of that in your life as you're moving through life. Like if something out of the ordinary is showing up in your world, it's like, well, maybe I've done this in a past life. I've been here before. And
Yes.
instead of just dismissing it, we embrace that,
Yes.
run with it. It's kind of like, shamanism. That isn't something that I grew up with, but it was absolutely something that came into my life. And the moment I embraced it and embodied it, it was like, yes, I remember who I am. I
I
remember
remember.
doing this. And it
Exactly.
is the connection of, because for me personally, I have around very masculine in my energy for most of my life as a single mom and different things I've gone through. But as we're speaking about the divine warrior, the feminine warrior, I also really recognize right now that I have around with that. And so coming and being more softer in my life now is such a gift that I don't think I ever realized I would ever achieve or get there, because
Yeah.
it wasn't a part of my everyday walk to be like, oh, I'm feminine. It's like, really? Because it seems weak. And, in my world in the past, it felt like you can't be feminine. That's a weak energy. And it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much beauty and so much power in it. And when you can embrace it and you just embody and you ripple that energy out, there's so much power in it. And I love being in the energy of feminine women that are in their strength, in their power. They know what they want. They're go-getters. They go and achieve what it is they want, but they're able to hold this very sacred space for people to find who they are. And I think that's what we do so beautifully here is we can hold this very strong container for people to come in and find themselves, to remember who they are, to know they are the sacred masculine, the divine feminine, and to embrace both sides of themselves and find that center point of equality within them and go and just be who they are, like be the badasses that we are. But it takes work to get there. It takes a lot of releasing and a lot of healing and a lot of action
Yeah.
to get to that point, but it's doable. And it's not always you have to go to a retreat. You can do it at home. Although highly recommend retreats. I think they're so amazing and fun. But if you don't have the opportunity for that, start cultivating your own rituals at home to connect with her,
Mhm.
connect with Mother Earth, to connect with Gaia, to know that even right now she is ascending in her own power and her own truth as a planet, as its own celestial being. And we are here to experience that. Therefore, we are rising up in our own feminine with her. And
Yes.
we're missing it if we're not connecting to the beauty that she has to offer us.
Yes. Yeah. And there was that beautiful nature of like I connecting down with the earth and connecting with like this very celestial source of cosmic goddess energy, and having both and knowing that both are there to support me in remembering who I am, that I'm in service to both. I'm in service to both. And I think that's really a beautiful takeaway of having these memories of I've been the temple keeper before. I've been the priestess before. And so in one of my journeys during the first ayahuasca ceremony, there was part of it where I had an ascended teacher, very feminine energy presence, very strong, but also very loving. And to remember, like, she brought me to the temple of Isis and she's like, I'm not telling you anything. You've done this before. You know how to get into the temple. And just being able to go to stand there on the steps and to touch the temple walls and the gates to get in, and going, I know I have the wisdom within me to unlock all of this, and to be able to take each step to get all the way into the antechamber, the area where the altar was, to lie on the altar, to receive the transmissions from Isis. Like, all of this was happening, and it was just so profound. And it was as if that remembering, I was able to come into a fuller sense of my own truth. Right. And I think that's the invitation, like whether it's at a retreat or if it's in a plant medicine ceremony, if you're coming with us on the ride for soul rising to really learn how to journey to yourself, like once you know how to journey, once you know how to shamanic journey, like you really could do like a lot of this work on, I'm going to journey to the divine feminine. I'm going to journey to embody the divine feminine. What does that look like for me? What if I want to journey with the intention of, how can I embrace the divine feminine in my daily life? You're going to get the answers, right? And for me, and I think so many of us, without a mentor, without the guidance, it's hard for us to cultivate on our own, right? That's why I love mentorship. I love being able to go to a retreat, learn these things, and bring it back to my own practice. But how many times do we go to workshops and events and retreats, but when we come home, we don't actually honor the integration practice and bring the process home with us, right? This is why I'm a huge advocate of doing online courses or doing activities that you're really integrating on the daily, because it can be amazing. I could go on this 1 week retreat and then come home and not do any of it. It's a choice. It's a choice to say, I'm going to continue with the Yoni Yoga. It's a choice to continue with the feminine version of microcosmic orbit. It's a choice that I get to make to say, I'm going to continue living in this vibration of divine feminine power. And so if you find yourself going like, yeah, I did the really cool retreat, or I did that weekend workshops or whatever, challenge yourself. Like for me, it's like, I already know that I'm on a continuing education journey, right? Like, and that's okay. Like I have been doing this work for over 20 years now, and it doesn't end, right? And so I get to say, yes, I want the further support. Yes, I want to do the integration calls. Yes, I do want to do a mentorship. Yes, I do want to learn more about these practices so that I can fully allow that energy to completely embrace my life and to step into that divine feminine energy and power more fully. And so this is why I really do enjoy mentorship. It means so much to me. And I was teaching a Reiki level 2 class yesterday, and again and again and again, I always say like, this is the issue with taking Reiki classes. It traditionally, it was that you were part of a membership, and you would come every week and you would practice together and you would meditate together and you would chant together and you would receive attunements together and you would receive trainings at your level when you were ready. And that's the way it was. It was a mentorship. It was very much a choice to be part of this program for months and months and years and years. Yeah. And so now we're teaching these Reiki classes, and I'm like, this is why I have an issue with Reiki training, is because so often you come in for a one done slam bam, thank you, ma'am, Reiki training. And then what? Is there a mentorship? Is there a connection? Is there a support person that's going to remain with you? And sometimes there is. I'm not to say that there's some really amazing Reiki teachers and trainers out there, but this is why I have an issue with like Udemy Reiki training. Like if you're not in connection with your teacher and they're not available to answer your questions, it's so frustrating, right? And so like I really love teaching Reiki, and I want to teach more, and I'm like, but I want to be committed. I want apprentices. I want to have this ongoing training, because to me it's more important to have that full transformational experience and having Reiki and these spiritual practices in your daily life than just another tool in your toolbox that you're never going to pull out. To me,
I
it's like,
agree with you.
what's the
As a
point?
Reiki teacher in my practice here at home, it's yeah, I have weekly shares, monthly shares, not weekly. I'm starting up a once a month Zoom so that level twos can practice distance. I have a group share. So there is this connection and you do have to show up. Like
Yeah.
master teachers have to show up for the students because if not, you have all these Reiki orphans out there that aren't learning or they are learning on their own in a way that creates like bad habits. And
Yeah.
it's so important when we are like even recently I had to send out a message to remind my students like, hey, you cannot go and just pull people into Reiki because like some will think it's the same as a massage or it's like counseling or therapy. And it's like, you can't just say, oh, like we're drinking, we're hanging out I know I feel like I'm going to do Reiki. No, I was like, hard no. We have to understand that we are working on a spiritual level and you can have entanglements and you can have all these different things that can happen. And if the person doesn't know what Reiki is and they're like, oh yeah, I want to feel good. And then you go and Reiki them and now suddenly you just open their Pandora's box because they've been suppressing all these emotions and all these traumatic experiences in their life and now you've done Reiki on them and they're like boom and then you just go on about your life and these people are like what the heck happened to me it's yeah so
Yeah.
that's my little rant on yes absolutely as Reiki teachers we need to show up for the
Yeah.
students that we are educating.
And don't feel bad about charging the appropriate compensation for that. Like there
Mhm.
was a reason why it was like equivalent to $5,000, $10,000 for training. Like, not that that's what I charge, but I feel like we need to have more integrity of the process if we really want Reiki to be supported and continue to grow. And I love that we get to be a way to show that you can make it part of your daily lifestyle. And so while I'm doing these divine feminine practices, while I'm doing microcosmic orbit, while I'm doing my Gokai chanting, I can do it in a feminine way. Like I'm all for mixing modalities together for personal practices, right? Like I feel like Reiki in and of itself is very feminine. It's
Mhm.
very, very, it can be very, very soft and gentle. When we bring in the shamanic part, like it definitely has a different energy to it, right? Which I love. But
Mhm.
Reiki in and of itself is very feminine. And so you had the beginning teachers bring in masculine elements to contain it, right? And so we needed the chants and we needed the hand placements and we needed these things to be able to teach it in a structured way. And it was that masculine structure that came in to what Reiki innately is feminine. And
Yeah.
so, right. And so we get to look at that, we get to explore it, and we get to understand, okay, here's energy work. Here's the way I'm moving energy in my body. And let's take the microcosmic orbit, for example. This isn't innately a Reiki practice. Neither are the chakras, right? We're it's been mixed modalities for dozens and dozens of years. But the microcosmic orbit is a Taoist practice that I was trained with in Reiki from 2002. Like as soon as I was did my Reiki training, I was taught the microcosmic orbit, and I've been teaching it for like 15 years. And I was taught in a very like straight back, breathe the energy up your back, exhaling down your front. You can use it with the Reiki symbols. And what if the spine was moving? And what if we allowed it to fully undulate like a snake, starting at the womb and letting the tail of the snake be at the head? And how are we breathing up the back and exhaling down the front in a full body undulation? And now we're looking like we're doing belly dancing, right? But we can do this standing up, we can do it sitting down, and we're really literally pulling the energy up from the earth to move it up the back and exhaling down the front. And then you can bring in the Reiki energy, and you're bringing the Reiki energy down into your crown, and those two energies get to mix. right? And so there's a really powerful, expansive way to come into this energy work to really blossom out our auric field into our full power. It's that undulation, that microcosmic orbit, that Kundalini rising energy has to move through every single one of your chakras to be able to get to the headspace. If we're pulling it from the earth up our system, we're using the power of the earth to have that Kundalini rising experience. And when we do so, it can be orgasmic, it can be full body sensations, it can be this explosive energy within us that ultimately enhances every single one of our chakras, enhances our auric field, enhances our toroidal flow. And when we can be in our full strength and power and energy system, how do we show up in the world that way? And it can just be a really beautiful, beautiful thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that, I think that's why it's important that we are learning different techniques. And I know that it becomes very rigid of Reiki is Reiki, but it's such a beautiful practice when we're able to integrate different elements too, because we are this, like we are these energy fields, we are our chakras, we do have our auric field, we have all of this, right? And like the Kundalini awakening, that is all a part of it. So when we divide all of these aspects and these techniques, it's kind of like we're still trying to catch up. And I just think we just need to open it all up and say, yeah, if you want to use this technique and that technique and this technique, pull it all together in your own practice. You do that work for yourself, because then you really are embodying the healer, you're embodying your healing. And so it's really not creating separate, like we're not creating division anymore in the healing field. And so for me, I embrace all of it. If I feel called to it, I'm like, yeah, I'll use that. I'll use crystals, I'll use pendulums, I'll use all like the different tools within my Reiki practice, sound bowls, all of that. And then at the same time, I'm bringing in shamanic techniques. I'm using just Reiki, whatever it is, just being in the energy of it all. And I think we
Right.
should embrace it all. And I
Yeah.
believe it's also the feminine within us, because we're creating. Like, I don't feel like I'm being masculine in that. I feel like I'm so in my feminine power when I'm doing my practice, because I am like, I listen to her. I listen to that voice in my inside, my intuition saying, go do this, use that. You know what? You're feeling something here. Do you have a crystal for that? Do you need to Reiki that? Do you need to pull things out? Is there a cord cutting that needs to happen? All these different things. And it's so feminine in your own creativity to be doing that, to listen to your intuition.
Right. And I think that's ultimately the purpose of Reiki, is to heal your kokoro, which is your heart mind connection, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are so much in our mind, which is the masculine element, the logical, the thinking, the solution oriented versus the heart. And so when we can heal the balance between the heart mind space, we get to listen to our heart, we get to lean into our intuition, we get to trust the process, we get to trust our inner knowing, we get to trust our hands, we get to trust Reiki. And that's when we get these beautiful, powerful sessions,
Yeah.
right? I love that. And I think that's why it always comes back to, how's your personal practice? How's your kokoro? How is that for you? Are we always just going to be stuck in our head, or are we able to sink down into our heart space? Are we able to sink even further down into our womb space? What do those spaces within us have to say? And we live in such a world of hustle and bustle and logical orientation that it's very we quiet the heart and we quiet the womb, right? And you know what? I just might have to be confusing to other people when I spend a lot of time in that heart space and in that womb space, and my life might not make sense to everyone. And you know what? I'm at the point in my life where I don't give I don't give a shit anymore. Like, I just want to, like, this is who I am. And if my processes don't make sense to you, guess what? They don't have to. I ever since I became a Reiki master back in 2004, I committed to having one foot in the earth plane and one foot in the spiritual plane. And it's easy for me to walk in the spiritual plane. It's easy for me to look and see what's going on in the spiritual world. It's easy for me to look and go, what is going on here and how does that reflect my spiritual life? Hello, animism, right? Like I can see those things and it doesn't scare me anymore. I mean, it used to, maybe a dozen years ago, it used to make me nervous to see the ghost, to see the darkness, to see the, and I'm at the point in my personal development that I can pull for the sword. I know that I have the tools in the spirit world to take care of whatever bullshit is going on there. And there's also this knowingness as I embrace the divine feminine to rise above it and say, I'm no longer available for it. I can rise above it to this cosmic home, as well as my Pachamama home, that earth home of going, I can be at peace and don't have to be in that middle space of where all the drama exists. I can reside energetically in these two worlds and I'm okay. And how do I recognize what's happening in my earthly life? How is that? How can I walk into the divine space, into this otherworldly space, and weave in the elements that I desire to have in my earthly existence? Right. And this is just, part of that spiritual evolution and recognizing that we're all on the evolutionary journey and wherever you're at is fine. And for me, I feel like doing this retreat was definitely a catalyst into understanding further my own energy within and how I want to show up in the world. And how do I integrate those practices to remember who I am? And I love that. I love all of that.
Yeah. And I love that for you. And I invite other women, men as well, but to really embrace that same walk for themselves. And when you're talking about, if people aren't connecting to you, a lot of times it's because they can't connect to themselves. They're in fear of their own, and that's okay. It's okay that not everyone is where you're at right now because they're on their journey and they will find their way. But a lot of times when you're facing judgment, it's mainly because there's so much judgment that they place on themselves, or they're in fear of embracing that part of themselves, that they don't know any other way to react other than to judge or to be in like criticism and all that, because they're probably so critical on themselves they can't even give a compliment if they tried,
Yeah.
and that's where a lot of people are. But I think as we're educating and we're exposing people to a different way of thinking and being and showing up in the world, that at least in our world of moon rising, we are putting that ripple effect out there so that others can really embrace this version of themselves.
Yeah. So here's to embracing the divine feminine. Here's to embracing the balance from within. Here's to embracing that duality that we are given, and to understanding that you are worthy to walk this path. You're worthy to do this work. You're worthy to shed your old skins. You're worthy to step into a new path. Like you have choice. You have choice to remember who you truly are. And so with that, until next time, may you awaken to the whispers of wisdom from within.